My name is Molly Ferris. I'm 38 years old, and 3 weeks ago, I watched my life collapse from the middle of my own driveway. It was 4 o'clock p.m. on a Tuesday. The sun was hitting the house just right, gold light, warm, soft. And I remember thinking how cruel it was that something so awful could happen under a sky that beautiful. Because in that moment, I stood frozen as my clothes flew out of the second-story window. One shirt, one shoe, one memory at a time, thrown like confetti at the world's worst parade. And the person screaming down at me wasn't a crazy neighbor. It wasn't a stranger. It was my boyfriend, Andrew. His face was red with a rage I had never seen before, not once in our 4 years together. Not even when deadlines crushed him at the office, or when bills piled up after his car broke down last winter. I'd seen Andrew frustrated, stressed, overwhelmed, but this was something darker. He shouted, "Molly, get out, now! You're not welcome in this house anymore." His voice cracked with fury, and I felt the first sting of tears in my eyes. But the real punch to the gut came from the figure standing behind him. Ethan, 17 years old, Andrew's only son. The son who had once shyly asked me for help with algebra. The son who used to sit silently at dinner, poking his food, grieving his mother. The son I had tried, really tried, to build a bridge with. He stood behind his father now, one hand resting dramatically on his shoulder, his expression twisted into something between fear and triumph. And then it happened. He looked at me, right in my eyes, and smirked. Not a big one, not a grin, just a tiny, confident lift of the corner of his mouth. Small enough that Andrew didn't see it, clear enough that I did. In that half second, the entire world shifted. This wasn't panic. This wasn't misunderstanding. This wasn't a teenager overwhelmed with hormones and grief. This was intentional. And he wanted me to see that. I took a breath that felt too sharp. "Andrew, what's happening? Why are you—" "Don't," he snapped. "Don't talk to me like I'm stupid. Ethan told me everything." Everything. That word echoed like a gunshot. I looked at Ethan again, and he suddenly stiffened, pulling up his sleeve with a trembling hand. That's when I saw it. The dark purple bruise blooming across his forearm, ugly and swollen. Andrew's voice broke as he shouted down at me, "You hurt my son!" My knees nearly buckled. Andrew, I didn't touch him. I wasn't even home this morning." "Stop lying." I froze instantly. That wasn't anger. That was conviction. He believed it. Ethan lowered his eyes, playing the terrified victim perfectly, his lower lip trembling. He whispered just loud enough for Andrew to hear, "Dad, please, don't let her come near me." Andrew erupted all over again. "Pack a bag and leave, tonight." I stared up at him, numb. My life, my relationship, my home was disappearing faster than I could understand. And all because of a bruise that I knew, deep in my gut, I had not caused. But it didn't matter what I knew. Andrew already believed the worst version of me. And Ethan knew that he had won. Right there in the driveway, beneath that too beautiful sunset, I felt the world tilt, and suddenly I wasn't looking at a shy, grieving teenager anymore. I was looking at someone who had planned this. Rewind. Let me show you how I got here. I met Andrew 4 years earlier at a tiny coffee shop where I'd worked remotely on a freelance project. He was charming in a quiet way, not flashy, not attention-seeking. He just had this warmth, this steadiness that drew me in. We talked about books, movies, childhood dreams. It felt easy, effortless. When he told me he was raising his son alone after his ex, Melissa, passed away, my heart twisted for them both. I admired him, his strength, his tenderness, his devotion. And Ethan, he was just a kid then, 13, thin, soft-spoken, carrying more grief in his eyes than any child ever should. I thought, I can be good for them. I really believed it. For the first 2 years, things were good. Andrew was loving and honest. Ethan was distant, but polite. I didn't push. I didn't try to replace his mother. I just showed up, quietly, consistently, hoping the foundation would someday become a connection. But somewhere around 9 months ago, the air changed. It started small. Ethan would sweet-talk his dad when I was in the room. Little compliments, jokes, laughs. But the moment Andrew stepped out, even for a glass of water, Ethan's face went blank. Cold, empty. I'd try to talk to him, and he'd give me nothing but one-word answers and dead eyes. Then, as soon as Andrew returned, Ethan would brighten again, as if someone had flipped a switch. It was unsettling, wrong, but I didn't want to accuse a grieving kid of manipulation. Then came the subtle barbs. "Dad, do you think Molly even likes me? Dad, She gets annoyed when you're not here. Dad, I don't know. I feel like she hates me. Andrew always reassured him, but I could see the shift, the tiny seeds of doubt Ethan was planting. And then the car incident. Ethan begged Andrew for a $35,000 BMW, not a reasonable car, not a starter car, a luxury car. I told Andrew gently that it wasn't realistic, that Ethan needed responsibility, not a vehicle that cost more than my first apartment. Ethan stormed to his room, slammed the door, cried dramatically for an hour. That night, Andrew questioned me, defended Ethan, said I didn't understand what it was like to be a single parent. A crack formed, small but dangerous. And from that night forward, Ethan started whispering more, longer, deeper. And Andrew's trust in me began to fracture. The bruise, the accusation, the eviction, it all made sense now. Ethan had been planning this for months. As I stood in the driveway watching Andrew tearfully embrace his son, "It's okay, buddy, I'll protect you," I realized something chilling. Ethan wasn't afraid of me. He was afraid I might expose him. And that smirk? That was the beginning of the end. The first week after Andrew threw me out felt like I was living inside a body that didn't belong to me. I slept on my friend Tessa's couch with a blanket that smelled like lavender detergent and heartbreak. I barely ate. I barely moved. Every morning I woke up hoping, begging, that a message from Andrew would wait on my phone. Something. Anything. But there was nothing. Not a missed call. Not a text. Not a single blue bubble asking, "Can we talk?" The man who once held me through panic attacks had cut me out like a tumor. And all because his teenage son had pointed at a bruise he put on himself and said, "I did it." Every night that week, I replayed the moment in my mind. Ethan lifting his sleeve. Andrew gasping. The crowd of neighbors gathering. Andrew telling me to leave. And that smirk. That tiny victorious smirk. It haunted me. By the third night at Tessa's place, the confusion had turned into something sharper, something cold. Because grief is heavy, but suspicion slices. The more I thought about Ethan's behavior over the last year, the more it made sense. The sudden sweetness in front of Andrew. The cold mask when Andrew walked away. The whispered comments. The way he'd started dropping guilt-laced reminders of his dead mother. He wasn't just acting out. He was calculating. And he had been preparing for months. But I still didn't know why. Not yet. The turning point. A week after I moved into Tessa's apartment, I finally forced myself to see a lawyer. Her name was Victoria Alden. Sharp, calm, and with eyes that seemed to slice straight through lies. She listened to everything I said without interrupting, not even when I cried halfway through describing Ethan's bruise or when my voice cracked talking about Andrew looking at me like I was poison. When I finished, she tapped her pen once, twice, then asked the question that would crack this entire case open. "Who owns the house?" "I do," I whispered. "I bought it before I met Andrew. I never added him to the deed." Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "Good. Then, do you want to divorce him?" The question nearly knocked the air out of me. "I don't know," I whispered. "I don't want to destroy a family. I want to understand what happened." Victoria leaned forward. "Molly, someone is lying to you. And unless you find out who and why, this won't stop. Even if you go back, the distrust won't disappear. Your partner's son framed you. Your partner believed him without evidence. That's not a marriage. It's a loaded weapon." Her words hit like a slap of truth. For the first time, I realized something. To stay with Andrew, I would have to accept a life where Ethan controlled everything. No, I couldn't do that. Victoria took a breath. "I want you to talk to a tech consultant I know. If Ethan has been manipulating this situation, there will be a digital trail." My chest tightened. "A trail?" She nodded. "Teenagers don't think digitally. They think emotionally. They forget phones, remember everything." And that sentence changed everything. The digital trail. Victoria introduced me to Brandon Lee, a cybersecurity consultant who looked more like a skater than a data analyst. He wore a beanie indoors and had a habit of chewing on pen caps while he thought. But he was brilliant. And he didn't seem surprised at all when I explained why I needed help. "Teens leave digital fingerprints everywhere," Brandon said, scrolling on his tablet. "If he's been planning this, your phone plan, cloud backups, app logs, they'll have information." "Isn't that privacy invasion?" I asked hesitantly. "Not legally," Brandon said. "You own the house, the Wi-Fi, the family phone plan. You are the guardian for the account. Anything backed up to your plan is fair game." My stomach churned. It felt wrong. It felt invasive. But I remembered Ethan's smirk. And suddenly it didn't feel wrong anymore. Brandon began pulling data from the family plan Andrew and I shared, something I had always thought was just a bundle discount. It wasn't. It was the key. Within 3 days, he called me back to his office. "You're going to want to sit down," Brandon said. "When someone says that, you think you know what's coming." I didn't. The first bombshell. The money. Brandon spread printouts across his desk. Bank statements, phone logs, cloud data. "This is your joint household account," he said, pointing to the first sheet. I frowned. "Andrew managed that." "Yeah," Brandon replied, and apparently so did Ethan. For 6 months, the account had been slowly drained. $75 charges, $120 charges, $250 here, $340 there, $299, $450, $190, and on and on. Nearly $8,000 gone. My mouth dropped open. He stole from us? Not stole, Brandon corrected. He used, and Andrew covered for him. He handed me a second sheet. This shows transfers from Andrew's personal savings into the joint account to cover overdrafts caused by Ethan's spending, meaning Andrew knew, and he hid it from you. The betrayal hit me so hard I had to grip the arms of the chair. Andrew hid this. Andrew lied. Andrew chose Ethan over honesty. But Brandon wasn't finished. The second bombshell. The messages. Brandon opened a folder on his laptop. "These are messages from Ethan's phone." I froze. "But he deleted everything." "Yes," Brandon said. "From the phone, not from the cloud." And then I saw them. Hundreds of messages. Conversations with his friend Tyler. Screenshots of Instagram DMs. Deleted text threads. All showing one horrifying truth. Ethan had been planning to get rid of me for almost a year. There were messages like, "Dad always believes me when I cry. She'll be gone soon. Once she's out, Dad will want a fresh start. We can move to the city after the breakup. He'll do anything if I tell him Molly scares me. Got the bruise ready. Going to show him." My hands went cold. My heartbeat slowed. I felt like my soul left my body. Brandon clicked another file. "You need to see this." The video. It started grainy. Bathroom counter, bad lighting. Then Ethan appeared in the frame. He lifted his forearm, took a deep breath, and slammed it hard against the countertop. Once, twice, 3 times. His face twisted in pain, but he kept going. "This better work," he muttered. My stomach flipped. I tasted something metallic. I couldn't breathe. This boy, this child I had cooked for, bought birthday gifts for, tried to help, was hurting himself to destroy me. And Andrew believed him. Tears blurred my vision as Brandon closed the laptop carefully. "I'm sorry," he said softly. I wasn't. Not anymore. Because now I finally understood. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't grief. This wasn't accidental. This was premeditated. And if Andrew wanted me to apologize, if he wanted me to crawl back and beg for forgiveness, he would get something else entirely. Andrew finally reached out on a Wednesday afternoon. I was folding Tessa's laundry, trying desperately to keep my hands busy so my thoughts wouldn't devour me, when my phone buzzed with a message I had been craving and dreading. "Andrew, are you ready to apologize to Ethan? He says he's willing to forgive you if you show him you truly regret what you did." I stared at the screen. I don't know what hurt more, the casual cruelty of the message or the fact that Andrew genuinely believed a teenager's forgiveness was worth more than truth. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I typed, "Molly, come tomorrow. 3 p.m., Café Marnier." His reply came instantly. "Andrew, does this mean you're ready to make things right?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I spent the rest of the night organizing the evidence into a neat manila folder. Printed bank statements, credit card transfers, deleted text messages, screenshots, timestamps, and the USB drive with the video. Brandon had even labeled it for me. Evidence for legal documentation. I barely slept. My mind replayed Andrew's voice telling me to get out. Ethan's false tears, that sickening smirk. Tomorrow, they were going to learn the truth. The cafe. Café Marnier sat on the corner of a quiet street. Small, warm, wooden tables, a soft hum of people typing on laptops. It was neutral ground. Public, safe, perfect. I chose a corner table facing the parking lot so I could see Andrew pull in. At exactly 2:59 p.m., his car turned into the lot. For a moment, a ghost of old warmth flickered in my chest. He looked tired, worn. His hair was a mess, and his shoulders bent forward like he'd aged 10 years in 2 weeks. When he walked inside, his eyes scanned the room until they landed on me. I saw it, the fleeting look of hope, like he expected me to stand up, run to him, apologize, fix everything, make it easy. But I didn't move. He sat across from me with a wary smile. "Molly, thank you for agreeing to talk. Ethan and I—" "Stop!" He blinked. I slid the manila folder across the table. Look, he frowned. Molly, I didn't come here for paperwork. I came here so we could talk about your behavior. Open it, I repeated, my voice flat. He hesitated, then flipped open the folder. He saw the divorce papers first, signed by Victoria, stamped by the courthouse. His face blanched. Molly, why is this here? Keep going. He turned the page. Bank statements. Andrew's eyes darted from line to line. $120, $250, $399. Overdraft fees. Transfers from his savings. His jaw clenched. This, Ethan said, Molly, this isn't what it looks like. Oh, it's exactly what it looks like. You knew he was draining our account. You hid it from me. He swallowed hard. Molly, I didn't want you to worry. He's been through so much. And so have I. He flinched, but kept reading. Then he reached the screenshots. Ethan's messages. Dad always believes me when I cry. She'll be gone soon. Once she's out, he'll move. We can go to the city. Got the bruise ready. Andrew whispered. No. I watched the color drain from his face so fast he looked sick. No. Molly. Someone could have faked these. This isn't... I took out my phone. Press play, I said gently. The video filled the small space between us. Ethan, alone in the bathroom, his face in the mirror, the countertop, the sound of skin hitting stone, the grunt of pain, the muttered words. This better work. Andrew froze. His pupils dilated, his breathing shallow. The cafe noise around us faded until it was nothing but the sound of his world collapsing inward. Oh my God, he whispered. Oh my God, Ethan. He covered his face with both hands. And for a moment, one single moment, I felt pity for him. But then the cafe door slammed open. I turned. Andrew stiffened. Ethan stormed inside. The meltdown. He must have been waiting in the car. He marched up to our table, voice raised so loudly the entire cafe turned. What are you doing to my dad? He shouted. What lies are you telling him? Andrew whispered. Ethan, please sit down. Ethan ignored him. He saw the papers, saw the screenshots, saw the USB on the table. His entire face changed. Not grief, not fear, not sadness. Rage. You went through my phone, he shouted at me. You're crazy. You're obsessed. This is illegal. People were staring openly now. I held up my phone quietly. The paused video filled the screen. Ethan froze. For one deliciously perfect second, panic cracked through his mask. Then he snapped. So what if I did it? He shouted, voice rising. So what? You don't deserve us. You're boring. You're a nobody. Dad and I would have a better life without you. All my friends live in the city. I'm stuck here because of him. He jabbed a finger at Andrew. And because of you. Gasps echoed across the cafe. A barista dropped a mug. Andrew stared at his son as if seeing a stranger. You lied, Andrew whispered. You lied about everything. Ethan scoffed. I did what I had to do. You were stupid enough to believe me. Andrew inhaled sharply, devastation carving into his features. Molly would have helped us, he murmured. She always helped us. And you. What? Ethan snapped. She was in the way. Once she left, you'd finally listen. We could move. To the city, I finished for him. Where your friends are. Where living is expensive. Where my house would no longer trap you. Ethan's mouth twisted. Andrew's voice cracked. You framed Molly. You hurt yourself. For what? For a move? For a life, Ethan spat. For a real one. Silence crushed the room. I stood, my voice calm, strong, unshakable. You have 30 days to get out of my house. Ethan's face twisted with fury. Andrew looked shattered. Molly, please, he whispered. We can fix this. We can go to therapy. We can... No, I said quietly. You believed your son over me. Without evidence. Without hesitation. You didn't even ask for my side. And now you're asking for another chance when you never gave me my first. Andrew's eyes filled with tears. Ethan opened his mouth to argue again, but this time Andrew snapped. Enough! Ethan froze. Andrew looked at me with a grief so deep it almost reached me. Almost, but not enough. Not anymore. I walked past them and pushed open the cafe door. Behind me, the last thing I heard was Andrew's voice breaking and Ethan shouting something unintelligible. But none of it mattered, because I was done. The next 30 days passed like a strange dream. Not painful, not peaceful, somewhere in between. I didn't cry the day Andrew and Ethan left my house. I thought I would. I thought I'd sit in the kitchen where Andrew and I once made breakfast and sob until my ribs gave out. But instead, I watched from the sidewalk as they loaded their worn-out suitcases into the trunk of Andrew's car. Ethan slammed his door with a glare, sharp enough to cut steel. Andrew avoided my eyes completely. The engine started, the car backed out. And just like that, they were gone. I didn't wave. I didn't turn away. I just stood there, steady, breathing in the cold air like it was the first breath after resurfacing from deep water. And when the street fell silent, something inside me loosened. Not joy, not relief. Just release. Like I had been holding my life together with clenched fists, and finally, I could let go. The aftermath. Word travels fast in small towns. 2 weeks after the cafe incident, people whispered. Eyes followed. Some approached me gently at the grocery store or in line at the post office. I heard what happened. Are you okay? My niece goes to school with Ethan. That kid always had a mean streak. I'm glad you got out when you did. I didn't confirm or deny anything, especially not the cruel things. But the truth spread on its own, because Ethan couldn't keep his temper quiet. Reports from neighbors, acquaintances, co-workers of Andrew's father. Ethan yelling at Andrew in parking lots. Ethan slamming doors loud enough to shake walls. Ethan mocking Andrew in public. Ethan demanding Andrew, just move already. Ethan complaining to classmates that Molly ruined everything. And Andrew? He unraveled. The man who once held me as if I were something precious now dragged himself through life like someone who lost a war. He looked older, grayed, tired in every photo mutual friends posted online. The truth had shattered him more slowly than it shattered me. That's the thing about guilt. It doesn't explode. It corrodes. His regret. 3 weeks after they moved out, Andrew called me for the first time. I stared at his name flashing across my phone. Part of me wanted to decline. Part of me wanted to answer and scream. But I pressed accept and held the phone to my ear. His voice was quiet, hoarse, not the man I once knew. Molly, I am so sorry. I didn't reply. I know you don't owe me anything. I know I don't deserve the right to ask for your time. But I need to tell you something. I didn't speak. He swallowed hard. You were right about everything. Silence. Ethan, he's not the boy I thought he was. He exhaled a shaking breath. Cruel, manipulative, violent with his words. I closed my eyes. I took him to a therapist, Andrew continued. Multiple sessions. They said he's been using grief as a weapon, that he learned from his mother how to manipulate to avoid consequences. That stunned me. Melissa, the ex, had always been a ghost in the background, sainted by death. But suddenly that ghost had teeth. He learned it young, Andrew whispered, and I didn't see it. I didn't want to. I thought if I kept believing he was good, he would be. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. I failed you, he said, and I failed him, and I'm paying for it every day. I finally spoke. You didn't just fail me, Andrew. You betrayed me. He inhaled sharply. I know. And if there's even the smallest chance, the smallest opening for us to fix anything, there isn't. He went silent. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. I simply felt done. Andrew, I said gently, I loved you. I would have built a life with you, but you didn't trust me. You didn't ask questions. You didn't even hesitate to believe the worst of me. And I can't go back to a man who thought I was capable of hurting a child. He exhaled a long, defeated breath. I understand, he whispered. And I believed him. For the first time in months, he sounded honest. We hung up. I put the phone down, and I didn't pick it back up. A final meeting, but Andrew reached out one last time. A month later, he asked if we could talk in person. He said he wouldn't ask again. Curiosity or closure pushed me to accept. We met in the park where we once walked after dinner. Andrew looked devastatingly small, hair unkempt, shoulders slumped, a version of himself hollowed out by guilt. Molly, he began, voice fragile. I don't want to get back together. I know I ruined that chance. I just want you to know something. I waited. The therapist told me, Ethan resented you because you made him uncomfortable. Why? I asked softly. Andrew looked away. 'Cause you set boundaries. I blinked. He nodded. You were the only one who told him no, the only one who didn't fall for his crocodile tears, the only one he couldn't control. And he hated you for it. He didn't want you gone because you were cruel. He wanted you gone because you were the first person in his life who saw through him. The weight of those words hit harder than any accusation ever had. Andrew looked up at me with eyes glassy from unshed tears. You were the best thing that ever happened to us, and he destroyed it. I let him. My breath trembled. I hope, he said quietly, that one day you find someone who deserves how hard you love. I swallowed the ache in my throat and nodded. Goodbye, Andrew. He closed his eyes like the word itself hurt. Goodbye, Molly. We walked away in opposite directions. Neither of us looked back. Freedom. My house felt different when I returned that night. Not haunted, not tainted. Clean. Mine. For the first time in years, I walked through each room and felt something shift inside me. Not grief, not anger. Strength. The kind you earn. The kind forged in fire. The kind that comes only after you've watched the worst people reveal who they really are and survived it. I poured myself a cup of tea, opened the back door, let the evening breeze fill the space that used to echo with arguments, slammed doors, rehearsed tears. For the first time in a long time, I felt safe. I felt whole. And as the last of the sunlight slipped through the window, I whispered into the warm, quiet air, I didn't just survive you, I outgrew you. And this time, I meant it.